Today's a pretty big day because we have the Light Phone 2 Directions tool. A lot of people have been waiting for this, and honestly, it delivers. So let's take a look into it. First of all, you have to have version 250. You cannot install the Light Phone tool or it will not work very well if you don't have version 250 and firmware, I believe, 83. Once you have those two, you go to your dashboard and you do the same as with the podcast or music or alarm calculator tools. You just install them. It will prompt you to accept a privacy policy, and we'll talk about that in just a second, and also to give your address in order to prime the location. We'll also talk a little bit about that when it comes to the phone. So once you have the direction tool, you'll be able to use it very seamlessly. The directions tool has a lot of settings. First of all, it has two modes. It has GPS mode and offline mode. And the offline mode also allows you to save battery. So if you want it to follow you and you want to see a map view, GPS mode is better. If you want to use offline mode in order to save battery, then that's actually just better. You can also activate something that's called location test status. So if you want to make sure that you get an accurate location first before you start into your directions, then that's actually the best way in order to prime the GPS. That's one of the quirks of the system, and I'll be explaining in just a second. A couple of extra things is voice commands if you want it for live navigation, or the imperial or metric system. I have it on imperial since I'm in the United States, but if you're outside of the United States, then of course the metric system works for you. Now, it has three modes: walking, driving, and also the mode for public transportation. This was not planned to come live. I believe it was going to come later, but I'm so glad that it's on version 1. Now, this is going to continue getting refined, and it's going to give you directions if you're in a city for, public transportation, which I think it's a big plus. Now, searching for things. So let's say that we're going to look for Starbucks. And I know that there is a couple Starbucks in my town, right? And it's going to give me which ones are available. Now, this is only going to give me the ones that are in my radius. But if I want to expand my search, I just click expand search radius, and it's going to give me extra things like going to Valdosta, Georgia, which is farther away, Perry, Georgia, etc., etc. So if you're in a location and you're trying to go to a different location, let's say that you're driving from, let's say my town to Atlanta, and then you want to go to a certain place in Atlanta, then you're going to have to click a couple of times that expanded radius in order to get better results. I think this is good because essentially it allows you to only limit the data to a certain location, and it's not just looking everywhere that it can. Google Maps does something very similar. Of course, when you redirect it and you say search here instead of here, then, I think that that's a good system. And of course, if you move into a different radius, a different area, it will search for that area. So I think it was pretty smart. And I was able to find most of the locations. Now, some of the times it doesn't show the location. And this is not the Light Phone team's fault. It's essentially the database from Here Maps. So there are two systems in here. They didn't use Google Maps because of privacy, and we'll get that into just a second. But Here Maps is very good. It's decent. It will showcase all of your necessary locations. So if you're looking for a specific address and you're driving there, then you just input it in and then you're good to go. But if you need something that is maybe brand new, it probably will not show up right away. And you may have to just wait a little bit longer than, let's say, Google Maps. And that's because Google is farming your data, whereas Here Maps is not. And the Light Phone team also is not farming that data, which is very good. So let's talk a little bit about privacy here when it comes to the phone and this specific tool. So this is the first tool that can, quote unquote, track you, right? But you don't have to opt in for that. You can just use offline mode, which I think it's a great default. It uses offline mode, just a certain general location in which where you're at, and that's about it. So it will use that location, that data, in order to just realize what are you trying to find. And of course, it's not going to track you right away. So that's great. You can turn off the GPS module, which is also very good, which, I personally like that. They don't track anything. They don't collect any data unless you have issues and you want help. So let's say you want help and you have issues with your GPS. Let's say the tool is buggy. They have an option that says logs, and you can share those logs in order to solve your issue faster. Let's say that you're trying to go to a certain place and it makes you turn into a different direction. Then you contact the Light support team, and work it out with them, but you can always turn it off. And that's something that I really appreciate about this phone. It's always been very privacy respecting. It's not sharing your data with anybody. It's always encrypted. And, there's, of course, like more terms and conditions on the tool if you want to check them out. Now, there is a couple of things to note, of course. The main thing is that this will drain your battery. So yesterday, I said I was in Alabama, and I was looking for certain things, and I was coming back home. That's about a 2.5 hour trip, about 3 hours, from Montgomery to where I live. And essentially, the phone got really warm about an hour and a half in. So it dropped maybe about 25% of the battery, which is a lot. Yeah. It's using the GPS and tracking me. I just wanted to make sure that everything was working, correctly. And it worked, but it got warm. So I wouldn't use it for long trips. Honestly, I was just testing it. I actually don't think it's that great for long trips. Like to say you're driving for 3+ hours, 6 hours. I don't think this is the best option for that. I think a standalone GPS is just better at that point. But it works. It does work. So about an hour and a half, I just kind of like exited out. I know where I was. And then I just plugged it back in and kind of regained that battery because it charges pretty quickly. So you're going to see and notice a little bit of a drop in battery and a little bit of performance. It will just slow down because when the phone gets hot, the e-ink just slows down in order for it not to burn, right, completely. And it works beautifully besides that, right? So if you're walking or public transportation, I think those are the best cases. And if you're driving, it's kind of short, maybe 30 minutes, an hour, then I think the phone will do well. Now, I did notice on my more testing today, I was driving today again, and whenever you have the phone and you don't use the map view, it takes way longer to actually warm up. So if you're using just the directions view, which is an arrow where you're going to turn next, then it absolutely takes way less time. So it's just easier to use it that way instead of use it in a different way, like the map box where you see all of the, it's following you and you see all of the features from the map. Just use the regular view, which is just directions and just the arrow. I think that's just a better mode in order to get like those long trips. Besides that, there are a couple of extra, kind of like quirks about the GPS tool. Again, it doesn't find everything all the time, so you may need to expand the radius. And sometimes the GPS location takes a little while. I think this is the last thing that I'll mention for now, and I'll continue doing more testing. And if you have any questions, of course, you can put it in the comments below. But whenever you turn off the phone and turn it back on, then the GPS may take a little while. It took about 5 minutes for it to lock in position for me. But whenever you do that location test, I think that's the best way. It kind of uses data and triangulation in order to locate where you're at. And then it doesn't miss you. Like, once it's locked in for a long time until you maybe shut it off or stop using the phone for a couple hours. So I think this is a great addition for the iPhone 2. Very well deserved. Props to the team. Thank you very much for bringing this. Now, I think the future is bug fixes. So you're going to see more bug fixes with Bluetooth and, a couple of the extra things that we have noticed. Podcast app, jumping or maybe stopping sometimes. So I'm really excited about this phone getting better and better. It's been 2 years almost since I've had this phone, and I just love that they continue to support the phone, to continue to build tools, and hopefully the SDK drops this year or maybe earlier, first half of next year, and then we can see just an expansion of more tools, more useful things for the iPhone 2. And of course, that's going to affect the battery, but it's kind of like a trade-off. If you really need something, then, you are going to be able to use it. I think this phone is just getting better and better, and now with directions, it's still something that is useful, not distracting, and that just allows you to go on with your day. So if you have any questions about this specific thing on directions tool or anything else, please let me know. I'll be doing a live stream hopefully in the next couple of days to showcase it, or kind of like go over other phones, things like that. So stay tuned for that. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure to put it in the comment below. I'll be interacting with you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.